So as Ricardo said, we were thinking about from a conceptual framework how key trade-offs are looking like in fighting the pandemic with a specific focus on developing countries. And I just want to give you a very brief overview of main insights from this work and key ideas. So in the absence of a vaccine or a treatment, the most effective policy measures that we're having to fight the pandemic are lockdowns, right? So it's a reduction in social and economic interactions. And while these lockdowns have shown to be quite successful in terms of fighting the pandemic, at least in parts of the world, they are very costly for the economy, giving rise to the much debated trade-off between lives and livelihoods, between saving households from the pandemic and saving the economy. And in the industrialized world, many people agree that the enormous value at stake in terms of the pandemic, of threat to lives from the pandemic, justifies the large economic losses that we're currently facing, right? And there's also like academic research supporting this view. But what this assumes is that households have the ability to absorb the economic shocks. And while this may be true in many industrialized countries, it's not necessarily the case in developing countries where parts of the population are close to subsistence. And what we argue in our paper is that in these countries, a lockdown that distorts the economy and deepens the recession may be very costly because it may imply that additional households suffer from deprivation, giving rise to an even more excruciating trade-off between lives and lives, between saving households from the pandemic or saving them from deprivation. And if you look, for example, at forecasts from the World Food Programme, which suggest that global hunger may almost double in 2020, then this indicates that this trade-off is a real trade-off and a real concern in parts of the world. And so what we were doing is we were developing a theoretical model which helped us think through some of these trade-offs in a consistent way. And some of the key insights is that optimal lockdowns are less strict in poorer countries where a larger fraction of the population is in poverty. So these countries are more concerned by deprivation vis-a-vis the pandemic. And transfer payments are very important in times of pandemic because they help alleviate this trade-off between lives and lives. And they actually help alleviate this trade-off from both ends. So they directly help freeing households from deprivation by providing them with additional resources, and that helps them to live through the recession. But they also help households to better comply with the lockdown. And hence, a lockdown is going to be more effective if you have more transfer payments, and this is good to fight the pandemic. And of course, the flip side of the same argument is that limited fiscal space is very costly in times of a pandemic, and that is particularly true for developing countries. So if they have limited fiscal space, they are forced to fight less the pandemic. More people die from the pandemic. And still, this may not be enough to help to free everyone from deprivation. And they may suffer from a large aggregate death burden and enormous welfare losses in times of the pandemic if they have limited fiscal space. Thank you very much. And